The night was already heavy with grief when the rain began to fall, soaking the empty road and the flashing police lights that reflected off the wet asphalt like broken stars. A father stood near the patrol car, his shoulders slumped, his face hollow in a way that only comes from hours of unanswered fear. His young son had vanished before sunset, swallowed by the woods near their small town, and every minute that passed felt like a silent verdict. Officers searched with flashlights and radios, dogs were called in, but hope was thinning with every step they took into the darkness. That was when something unexpected happened, something so small and quiet that no one noticed at first, until it changed everything. Before the story goes any further, if you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the idea that even the smallest voice can change a life, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, leave a kind comment, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this remind us why compassion still matters in a hard world. Out of the shadows near the edge of the crowd stood a little girl, no more than 8 years old, clutching the worn strap of a small backpack. Her clothes were too thin for the cold rain, and her hair was damp and tangled, but what stood out most was her calm. While adults paced and panicked, she watched the officers with steady eyes, as if she understood something they did not. Beside her sat a police dog, older than most canines on duty, its fur graying around the muzzle, its posture alert but gentle. This was not an active service dog anymore, at least not officially. The girl had inherited the dog after her mother, a former canine handler, passed away the year before. Since then, the dog had been her shadow, her comfort, and her silent protector. The officer leading the search barely noticed them at first. His mind was racing through maps, procedures, and worst-case scenarios he tried desperately not to imagine. He had a job to do, and emotions were a luxury he could not afford right now. But as the rain intensified and the search teams regrouped, he felt a small presence near him. When he looked down, he saw the girl standing there, rain dripping from her lashes, her hand resting on the dog's head. She looked up at him with a seriousness that didn't belong to someone her age. She told him that her police dog could find the missing boy. At first, the officer felt a sharp, almost guilty frustration. He had spent years training, following protocol, trusting experience over hope. This was a child speaking from belief, not from procedure. Yet something about her certainty gave him pause. He had seen desperation before, and this was different. This was quiet confidence, born not of ignorance, but of trust. The dog at her side seemed to sense the gravity of the moment, its body tense, its eyes fixed on the forest, as if already listening to a call no one else could hear. The officer hesitated. The official K9 unit was delayed, and daylight was gone. Every minute mattered. He looked back at the father, who stood frozen, his eyes red and unfocused, clinging to the last fragments of hope. Against his training, against the rules he had followed his entire career, the officer made a decision that would later be questioned, criticized, and remembered forever. They moved toward the edge of the woods, the rain softening to a mist, as if the night itself was holding its breath. The girl walked steadily, her small boots sinking into the mud, her hand never leaving the dog's collar. The forest was dense, the kind that swallowed sound and light, and every snapped twig made the officer's heart jump. He kept thinking about the boy out there alone, scared, cold, maybe hurt. He thought about his own child at home, asleep in a warm bed, unaware of how close life always is to breaking. As they went deeper, the dog's behavior began to change. Its pace quickened, its focus sharpened. The girl noticed it immediately, her face tightening with concentration. She had grown up watching her mother work, learning to read the subtle signs, the shift in breathing, the way the dog's ears angled forward when it caught a familiar scent. The officer saw it too and felt a surge of adrenaline. This was no longer a hopeful gesture. Something was happening. The terrain became rougher, the path nearly invisible, and doubt crept back in. What if this was a mistake? What if he was wasting precious time? What if hope was leading them in circles? The rain-soaked ground made everything slippery, and more than once he nearly fell. The girl stumbled but never let go. Her determination was stronger than fear, stronger than exhaustion. She had already lost too much in her short life to turn back now. Then, deep in the woods, the dog stopped abruptly. The air felt different there, heavy and still. The officer raised his flashlight and scanned the area, his heart pounding so loud he was sure everyone could hear it. At first there was nothing, just trees, rocks, and darkness. Then he heard it, a faint sound, barely more than a whimper, carried on the damp night air. They followed the sound down a small embankment and found the boy lying near a fallen log, his leg trapped, his face streaked with dirt and tears. He was cold, exhausted, and terrified, but alive. The moment felt unreal, like stepping into a dream you don't dare believe is happening. The officer dropped to his knees, relief crashing over him so hard it stole his breath. The girl stood quietly behind him, tears finally spilling down her cheeks as the dog sat beside the boy, calm and steady, as if guarding him until help arrived. When they carried the boy out of the woods, the waiting crowd erupted in disbelief and emotion. The father collapsed to the ground, sobbing, holding his son as if he might disappear again. Officers who had spent years maintaining composure wiped tears from their faces. The rain had stopped, and the sky above seemed lighter, as if the night itself had been changed by what had just happened. Word spread quickly. People talked about the miracle, about the retired police dog, about the little girl who refused to stay silent when she knew she could help. Some questioned the decision, but most understood something deeper had been at work. It wasn't just training or instinct. It was trust. It was the courage to listen to a voice that was easy to overlook. If this story is touching your heart right now, if it's reminding you that hope can come from unexpected places, please take a moment to like the video, share it, and subscribe. Your support helps bring stories like this to others who might need them more than you know. In the days that followed, the officer visited the girl and her dog. He thanked her, not just for helping save a life, but for reminding him why he became an officer in the first place. The town rallied around her, offering support, warmth, and recognition, but what mattered most to her was simple. She still had her dog, still had the bond her mother had left behind, and now she had proof that even in her grief, she could bring light to someone else's darkest moment. Just before this story ends, I want to ask you something special. Please comment below and tell us what this story made you feel, or share a moment when kindness or courage changed your life. Your words might inspire someone else who's reading. That night, when the forest returned to silence and the road dried under the morning sun, one truth remained clear. A missing child was found not just because of skill or authority, but because someone listened, because someone believed, and because a little girl had the courage to speak up when it mattered most. And sometimes that is all it takes to shock the world and restore faith in humanity.